psychic, I'm a medium, I'm an empath, and the story I'm going to tell you happened back in 2015 in Arizona. It was nighttime. I woke up around 2 a.m. to see a man standing near the foot of my bed. The man looked to be in his early 20s. He had on a white t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up a couple times. The shirt was tucked into his jeans. His hair was like an old style that was popular back then. And he was just kind of hanging out, leaning against a chair I had in the corner. He wasn't staring at me, but I noticed his head was slightly down, and he would just glance my way a couple times. I didn't feel threatened by him. Like there was zero negativity coming from him, but I did know he was waiting for something. So I went back to sleep, and when I checked in the morning, there was no sign that anyone had been in that spot. That week, I ended up waking up around the same time every night for the next 4 days, literally just to see the same man standing in the same spot. And on the third night, I did notice that his jeans were black. Like, trust me, this little detail matters. The evening of the 5th day, there was a lot more commotion from one of my neighbors who lived like 6 or 7 houses down from me. I saw police, I saw fire trucks, I saw an ambulance speed down the street to my neighbor's house, and I later found out my neighbor was unalived by his adult son. Just in case you were wondering if the son is in prison, he got 25 to life. But after what happened to my neighbor, I never saw the man in the white t-shirt and black jeans again, but my story doesn't end there. So a couple of weeks later, I start waking up around the same time again, only now I'm waking up while I'm lying on my left side, and I sleep on the left side of my bed. So when I wake up, I'm now seeing this little girl, and she's 8 years old. She has long, curly, poofy hair. It's held back with a thin, dark headband, and she's wearing a white, sort of like short sleeve blouse with puffed out sleeves. Her skirt looks like 80s style romper skirt dress. It almost looked like a school uniform, but the skirt dress color is black. Anyway, the girl is kind of crouched down where I can see her face from mid-nose up. And of course, all of her thick hair. She seemed like she literally wanted to tell me something, but wasn't sure if she could. I didn't get any like negative energy from her, so I fell back asleep. And again, for the next 4 nights, I woke up on my left side and I saw this little girl. Only she would be standing up a little more each night. And on the 5th day, I was in the office upstairs, and I saw out the window about 4 to 5 fire trucks, a bunch of police, and a life evac helicopter out on the bridge that goes over like one of the large drainage canals. And I learned that 2 boys, 2-year-old twin brothers, had drowned in the canal that morning. The next morning, when I woke up and realized I didn't wake up last night, it hit me. Those 2 spirits I saw were death. I don't believe they were actual like angels of death, but more like death's helpers. Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I was dating somebody who I knew in my gut wasn't right for me. And when I say gut, sometimes I say like gut. Gut is our guardian angel, right? Or ghost in this case. And so one day I was on my way over to his house, and I definitely had that ghost with me in the car, and it was telling me not to go, but I kept ignoring it anyway. I got into his house, and we were hanging out for a little bit. One thing led to another. We went upstairs, about to go have some fun and do the damn thing. And I heard clear as day in my ear, "He's filming you." And I was directed to my right, and I found a iPhone recording us in the corner of his bookshelf case. Grabbed the phone and left. That's a ghost.
All right, this one is going to be a short one, but this is the very first time my mom and I realized that something was up with our house. So I don't remember exactly how old I was. I'll have to ask my mom if she remembers. But yeah, this is just a really creepy story. So one night we were sleeping. I was sleeping in my parents' room. My dad worked nights, and so it was just me, my mom, and my siblings. Anyways, we were sleeping. Everything was normal before we went to bed. My mom and I, we slept really close together. Like, I always just wanted to be like up against my mom, putting my feet on her feet when we fell asleep, like that kind of stuff. And so we were like sleeping pretty close together. There wasn't a lot of space in between us. Just so you guys know, the only animal that we had at that time was a cat. and she was pretty small at that time. So anyways, we're sleeping, and all of a sudden my mom is shaking me awake. Like, she's saying, Lily, Lily, that was my nickname. She was like, Lily, Lily, wake up, wake up. And I open my eyes and I'm like, what? And I look over to my side, and because I'm laying on my back and she's laying on her back as well. So I look over and I say, Mom, what? And she says, do you see that? And I'm like, see what? And I'm still looking at her, right? So she says, Lily, look. So I look, I'm getting goosebumps. So I look straight where she's looking, and the blanket in between us, like there wasn't a lot of space. The blanket in between us is, I don't know how to explain it, like it's lifted off the bed, like just in that spot. Like the rest of the blanket was fine, but it looked like someone was standing underneath the blanket. We couldn't feel anyone in between us at all. Like, I know that I couldn't feel anything underneath the blanket, but when you looked there, it looked like someone was just standing underneath our comforter. So my mom just kind of whispers to me, she says, I'm gonna lift it up. And so I grab it with her and we go like this really fast. And as soon as we do that, we don't see anything at all, but we hear running down the hallway. So her bedroom was at the very end of the hallway downstairs, and you could see the hallway from her bed, because just how her bedroom was set up, you could see the hallway from her bed. So when you look straight, you could see like out the bedroom door down the hallway. No one was out there, but you could hear someone running. And the weird thing is that the footsteps of someone running, we had carpet all in the hallway and all in the room, but it sounded like someone was running like on hardwood floor. You guys, it was just really weird, and that was the first time that my mom and I realized something is not right here. There's stories that she will try and deny and try and say like, oh, I don't know, it could have been this, it could have been that. But this is one of those stories or things that have happened to us where she's like, yeah, I remember that, and that was terrifying. So yeah, that was another one of my neighbor just closed her door really hard and it scared the hell out of me. But yeah, that was another thing that happened in our house.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
There are so many different stories that I'd love to tell you guys, but this one is probably one of the most scariest. So I don't live with them now. About 6 years ago, my son and I, we moved back in to my parents' home. This was the home that I grew up in as a child, and it was built in the 1920s. No one ever passed away on the property, in the house, whatever. Nothing crazy ever happened. It's just an older house in really nice area in the suburbs. There's not much history about it, really. Growing up, my mom and I always had just like either weird dreams, or we thought that we would see something and sorry, my cat. We thought that we would see something and it just wasn't there, both separately and together as well. So when I moved back in, I moved into the attic, which was actually converted into a bedroom. It was just a long, narrow room. It's pretty large, but it was narrow and just long. And then at the end of the attic, there's a big closet. It could be like a walk-in closet type of situation, but it doesn't have a door. My dad would just put a cloth or, like fabric over it because we just stored a whole bunch of crap back there. One of the reasons why I hated the attic growing up is because it just was kind of dark up there.
And also that area, the closet area, was just really weird. Like it would always give me a weird vibe. I've only been into that area a handful of times. So this is important to know. Like the way that you would get into the attic is so you have like the front door. Right at the front door, there's steps going up. So you go up the steps. To the left is a bedroom. I believe at the time it was my sister's room. And then to the right, sorry, left and rights, to the right would be the attic. Now, to get up there, you would have to climb up like three really short steps and then kind of like crawl in there or hold on to the sides and step in there. It wasn't a full length door. Yeah, it was just really, it was a weird setup, but the door was small and there was always a draft. And so my dad he put like a latch hook sort of situation at the top. And then on the bottom, he put a deadbolt. So whoever, if one of the kids, we all took turns having the attic as our room at one point. And so in order to keep it closed and stop the draft from coming in, he put a deadbolt on the door. So it's on the bottom of the door and he drilled a hole into the floor and you would just secure it pretty much into the floor. So now that that's all out of the way, one night I was sleeping, everyone in the house was sleeping. My dad was at work, and my mom calls me around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what the heck? She's right down the hall. Why is she calling me? I pick it up and she says, "Hey, is Jeremiah down here?" Jeremiah's my son. He was sleeping right next to me. I look over and he was right next to me. And she says, and I said, "No, he's right here. Why?" And she said, "Because it looks like that there's a kid in the hallway, like in my doorway." And I said hi, but they're still standing there. "Are you sure Jeremiah's in the room with you?" So I'm like, yes, he is here with me. I asked, was it one of my siblings? And she said, no, they were way too short to be, my other siblings who were they're just a few years younger than me. So they're much taller than what she was describing. So after she confirmed that it was none of my siblings and my son was right there, we were both just pretty freaked out. I didn't go downstairs to check on my mom. I was just like, close your door. I don't know, maybe call dad and see if he can come home from work. But my door was locked, secured. I was like, nothing, don't come up here. So as soon as we say goodnight, she's like, "Good night." I'm like, "Good night, love you. See ya in a few hours," because it was already morning. Right as soon as that happened, my door, the door that is bolted, just swung open and hit the wall behind it. And so it's just like if you just take a door, swing it open, and it hits the wall behind it. It hit the wall so hard. Of course, it caught me off guard, so I just jumped up and I did run over to the door because I was thinking, okay, maybe my mom ran up here and I don't know, she was the Hulk and just pulled on the door really hard. But no, there was no one behind the door at all. No one. Everyone was still sleeping. My mom, she was still awake because we just got off the phone. She heard and she called me back, and I was like, "Mom, the door just swung open." And she was like, "What do you mean the door swung open?"
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I genuinely think this might be one of the creepiest stories out there, and for some reason this story always gets to me. On this particular evening, I was getting ready to go on a date for the first time with this girl that I met. I picked her up, we got onto the highway, and as we started to drive, I saw her dead dad in the back seat. And I couldn't believe it at first. I was in shock. Bear in mind, this is the first date. So as I'm driving, I just turned to her and I said, "So "Is your dad dead?" And she replied with, "Yes," but she got really freaked out, which is pretty obvious. And she asked me why, and I just said, "Nothing, just asking." Meanwhile, I can still see her dead dad in the rear mirror of the car, literally in the back seat looking at me. I still remember to this day, his eye colour was blue and he had a moustache. Literally every single feature, I could see it clearly. But I just carried on because I didn't want to freak her out. It was first date as well. I mean, doesn't really look good, does it? But for some reason, as I'm driving, I just get this image of an eagle. An image of an eagle. I saw it so vividly as I was looking on the road. So I turned to her and I'm like, "Has an eagle got anything to do with your dad?" And she just looks at me. She went stone cold and said, "Yes, my dad had a tattoo of an eagle on his arm." And at that point, I could see she was really freaking out. Like, how the hell would I know that? And we're on the first date, for God's sake.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, so I actually have a lot of stories that I could tell, but this first one isn't even my story to tell. It was my mom's, but I'm going to share it with you. Back in the day, my mom worked in a hospital in a very religious area of Brooklyn, New York, and she was a hospital administrator. So that meant she had to deal with like a lot of she wasn't medical. She had to deal with like the patients, their families, making sure things run smoothly, things like that. And a lot of times it had to do with like making arrangements for afterlife care for the families. So this one time my mom was called to a hospital room, and she was actually there when the patient passed, and she helped the family afterwards with making arrangements for going forward. So I think she was leaving for work. I know she was in her car, and I know she wanted to check on things to make sure things were running smoothly. But it might have been like as she was leaving to go home that she kind of pulled up outside of the hospital, and the patient was being brought out and put in a hearse, and the family was there. So in this particular denomination, their practice is that the family has to stay with the body for a certain period of time. I don't know how long, but the family wanted to like accompany the body. So the deceased was being put into the hearse, as I said, and then the family's car was right behind the hearse. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Sorry. So my mom kind of like pulls up alongside, and she's maybe a little bit behind the family's car, and she's looking and just kind of making sure everything's going smoothly and whatever. And she notices there's somebody standing outside of the family's car, like looking in at the family. And then she realizes it's actually the deceased patient. She said it was very transparent, but 100% she knew it was the deceased patient. So I don't know if that brings you comfort. It kind of does to me, that they're always with you and they'll be with you through everything tough in life. But yeah, that was my first of many stories I can share.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
The amount of stories I can honestly sit here and tell y'all is disgusting. So to keep it short, I'm just gonna tell you about the story that really set everything off. So when I was 5, me and my family moved to a new house. The house was really nice. It was a 3-story house, really big, really nice. We moved in fine. We like unpacked, like everything was good at first. So one night, my mom is in the kitchen cooking, and she basically like yells for me to go and tell my siblings it's time to come and eat dinner. So my brother's rooms were on the 3rd floor, and I wasn't allowed to go up there without their permission or my mom's permission. So when I went to tell them, I'm like standing at the landing, and like I'm staring up the steps to the 3rd floor, and there's so weird. There's 14 steps. I don't know why I remember that. I used to count steps. I don't know. But yeah, there's 14 steps, so it's a long staircase. But above the staircase, it's like a hallway. So it's the wall straight up, like straight up the staircase, you're looking at the wall. Then when you turn, there's a room right here. You come down the hallway, there's another room at the other end of the hallway. I hope that makes sense. Mind you, there are no windows in this hallway. Keep that in mind. There are no windows close enough in the rooms to reflect the hallway. It's gonna make sense soon. So I go to like yell for them, like, mommy said come eat. And I like stop mid-sentence because I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. So I'm seeing like a silhouette, like I'm seeing like a shadow on the wall, but it's of like a woman. And like she's standing like sideways. And her hair is like flowing in the wind. She has like this long like nightgown on. Like because of the length of it, I could tell like it was like a nightgown. It came all the way down. And it was just like flowing in the wind. And like, mind you, there are no windows. Like, I don't know how I'm seeing this. I don't know where it's coming from. Like, I'm just seeing her. And she just like standing there. And then she just like falls. Like, just like, mind you, I'm seeing her sideways. So it just looks like she just like falls. So at this point, I go mute. I go mute and basically I just like turn around and go right back downstairs and tell my mom. So I guess my mom like asked the neighbors and like people in the neighborhood like what happened in the house, like stuff like that. And at first like nobody was trying to tell her nothing. Like it gave like they knew something but they didn't want to say anything. Like it was just like a you don't want to know type vibe. Very weird, but yeah. So somebody essentially tells her like, oh, somebody died in the house. And they like tell her the story or whatever. Y'all, why did they tell her? Somebody committed suicide on the, like a woman committed suicide on the 3rd floor out of the window. So I'm guessing like I saw her reenacting her committing suicide. And now I'm thinking about it, well, I didn't really see nobody push her, but somebody could have pushed her. She could have been trying to get me to like solve the case. I don't know. I don't even know why I saw it. I really don't. But yeah, I saw that and then my mom found out she committed suicide. And it's crazy because after that, like we found out other people passed away in the house. And like all this strange stuff started happening to us. Like it was a lot going on. Like 3 of us, mind you, there were 6 of us. 3 of us would see like a black like shadow figure like following us around. Like when we would look, it would like duck away. Like I don't know how to describe it. We would like try and chase it around corners and like see where it went, and nothing would be there. I would like play with my toys and like I had like dolls, like Barbie dolls, Bratz dolls, all types of different dolls. I would like play with them and come back, like leave and come back, and they would be in different positions. Like somebody else was playing with them. Mind you, I know nobody else is like coming in my room and just playing with my toys. I don't know. One time we heard something like it sounded like not a human, but something like big and like I don't know. But we heard something like crawl through the wall, like we were about to watch a movie, and as soon as it got like really quiet, something like crawled through the wall. And I'm not talking like through the bottom, like oh it might be a mouse. No, I'm talking top to bottom, crawling through the wall. Like we heard it. And I've seen other like spirits, I guess, in the house because I've seen like other people, but it wasn't the lady that I saw the first time. I had crazy dreams all the time, sleep paralysis all the time. Like it was really a lot going on in that house. I don't know. But yeah, if y'all want to know more, let me know.
To you where you went from I think I might be psychic to I'm definitely psychic.
Back in 2017, I dreamed of my daughter's passing a couple of weeks before she passed away. In the dream, I was in a school in a hallway and Death was in a black cloak and I was frozen where I stood and he levitated towards me. When he got close to me, he grabbed me by my shoulders, kissed me, and breathed into me, and I could taste death. Once he released me, I was able to move again, and I ran outside and noticed my daughter face down in a puddle, and I grabbed her and began to perform CPR. In reality, a few weeks later, she passed unexpectedly in her sleep. I woke up and noticed that she was not breathing, and I put her on the floor and immediately began to perform CPR. When I breathed into her, my breath went into her lungs and circulated back into me, and I could taste death, and I knew that she was already gone. And it was like the dream. You know, I was approached by death, and especially the kiss of death, the breath and the taste of death. It was very specific to the dream. I had told my sister about it a couple weeks prior to her passing too, because I couldn't shake the feeling that I had with that dream. It felt so heavy, and there was just something about it that I couldn't shake. So I had to call my baby sister and talk to someone about it. And then on the day that my daughter passed, when my family got together, me and my sister could not stop talking about that dream. I've had other psychic experiences and phenomena in my life, but that is the top of all of the experiences that has made me a believer.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, I have one, and I have a few, but I'm going to share one that's a little bit different than some of the things that I've been seeing on this trend so far. And in order to tell you about that, I have to tell you about this. Since I was in my early teens to my mid-20s, I've been having this reoccurring dream, and it was always about this house. How you would get to this house was you would cross this little bridge. It was like with the river underneath it. The house was always embedded into the right side of a hill, and most of the time it was an older white house, but sometimes the house would shift into something more modern. But it didn't matter what iteration of that house you would walk up to, it would always have floor to ceiling bay windows. And when I would go into this house, I would always hang a left through this living room, and the further into the back of the left of the house I would get, the more this house would kind of shift into something else. And the more that it started to shift into something else, like just another house, another like dwelling, like very weird, empty, like 80s plasticky kind of vibes, the more I would feel like I shouldn't be there. And once that feeling was like too strong, I would just walk back up through the regular living room and back up into the foyer. Now in the foyer, there was a staircase that split up at the top, and it wasn't like a grand staircase. It was just a straight up narrow staircase with a landing, and then once you got to the landing, there were two little steps up that would lead you into two bedrooms. I don't have any idea what's in these bedrooms. I never made it up there. Every time I would get to basically where the landing was at, I would be filled with this feeling of dread, and this feeling that I shouldn't be here. This feeling was tangible. It was thick. There was a lot of pressure, like physical pressure on my chest, and once it would bubble up, usually a voice would be like, "Go, get out of here." And I would boot it down the stairs every single time. Back down the stairs, we're done. Something in my head said, "Don't look back." But every single time I would run down the stairs, I could feel something big and thick and like hot following me down the stairs. And I never turned around to see what it was. I was far too scared to do that. And usually by the time I would get to the bottom of the stairs, my body would wake me up because I'd be so freaked out. Trigger warning for this next little section. If you don't like gore, move a little bit ahead because it's a very quick piece. But one time I went up the set of stairs in my dream, and I didn't notice it on the way up, but there was just this woman's head at the landing, like just on the landing, like neck up. And I'm like, oh my God, that's somebody's head. And the person was still alive, which was the weirdest like thing to me. It was just this woman. She had like regular curly brown hair, nothing like out of the ordinary, except that she was missing her whole entire body. But she saw me see her, and when she saw me see her, the look on my face must have been the funniest thing she'd ever seen, because she just started shriek laughing at me. Like my shock, my fear was like a joyful thing to her, and that dream had me like thinking about it for weeks. And I just was like, I have to tell somebody about it at this point. I don't know what to do. So like I'm having these dreams all the time. So my mom and I are driving home one day from our campsite, and I decided to tell her what I just described. And I could see her kind of start to white knuckle the steering wheel, and I could see her breathing start to change. And eventually she was like, "That's enough. That is enough." Like she wouldn't look at me. A, she was like driving, but B, I don't think she was freaked out enough. She didn't want to look at me. And I was like, "What? Like, I'm just sharing my dream." She's like, "That's enough. Like, I don't care. I'm freaked out right now." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I've had that same dream about that same house since I was 15 years old." She goes, "I've never seen the woman you've described, but going into the left side of the house and it being a whole other house, going up the stairs, all this stuff, the bay windows, all of it, I have dreamt about this house since I was 16 years old. The fact that you had to cross the river to get to it, I've dreamt this all." And she and I just kind of like sat there in silence. Like, it's still like a very like, wow, a very jarring like thing to think about, but we didn't know what to do. So that I had to tell you this. my mom purchased a bungalow, her first time buying a home. She bought it off of a coworker whose parents had passed. From my understanding, one had passed in hospital and one had passed in a long-term care facility. And so when we moved in, like, we were unhappy because we were a little bit further from our friends, but my mom loves this house. She still lives there. Some things to know is that the back of the house, there are 2 bedrooms that face out there. My mom's and my brother's, and my mom has these 2 giant windows. They're about 8-9 feet off the ground. Like, I'm 5'5", and I have to like reach up to get to the bottom of the windowsill. And the other thing you need to know is that there's a room that joins all of the bedrooms together. It's this tiny little like foyer area, but to the back of the house is my brother's room, then my mom's room, then the bathroom, and then my room, and then this little linen closet was like to the left of my room. And one night I'm having a dream, and it's pretty like normal in comparison to like the reoccurring dreams. So not really thinking, can't really remember much about what was happening, but it swirled and shifted into me still being in a dream, but being in the room that I was physically sleeping in at the time, like my bedroom. And I remember waking up in my dream to the room that I was in being pitch black, but the hallway, like that foyer, the connecting room, the light was on to that. So in my dream, I was like, oh, let me go turn that off and I'll go back to bed. When I get into that connecting room, something inside my head goes, open the linen closet. And I do, no hesitation. I open it up. And standing in this linen closet that is too small for a person to physically be in is this woman. And she is wearing this like beige jacket, and I remember her lapels being like so big, it was like trench coat style, that like light khaki beige that a trench coat is. And she is soaking wet, and she's got shaggy hair that's to her like chin / like just top of her shoulders, and she sees me see her just like that lady at the top of the stairs. And when she sees me see her, she looks at me like this, and then she goes, and I scared myself awake with that. Like, that was enough. And it was very disorienting to wake up in a room that you just like seconds ago in your dream had physically left. Like, it was so weird. But I got up, left the room, and as I'm leaving the room, my mom is leaving her bedroom, and she's like, what are you doing up? It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, I just had a really bad dream. She goes, me too. And I was like, did the dog sleep with you tonight? And she goes, no, was she not with you? We had this little Jack Russell Shih Tzu mix named Annie, and she would always sleep in somebody's bed. She had free reign to go around the house. She could go up and down our basement stairs. She usually goes down to the basement, or did go down to the basement to do things she's not supposed to do. But no problem getting up and down the stairs. Now, my mom and I are like, where is she then? So we go and try and find her. She's not in the living room. So we go to the kitchen, and the kitchen, at the back of it, there's a set of stairs that lead down to our basement, and we can hear growling when we get to the kitchen. And we're like, what the hell? Like, we have, again, this yappy little Shih Tzu Jack Russell mix. It's more of that like yip, 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 like that kind of a dog than, well, she was loud and a barker, but she was not a growler. So to hear her have this guttural growl at the base of the stairs was crazy. She was at the bottom of the stairs. All of the lights in the basement were on, and they were not on when both of us went to bed. There's nobody else in the house, and the dog would not come up the stairs. We could not get her to come up, and she was just stuck growling. And it took us probably about 5 minutes to get her up there. My mom and I are freaked at this point, and I tell her what and who I dreamt about, and she goes, again, shut up, stop, like, please stop, I can't, like. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, that same woman, I could see her from her chest up, walked the entirety of my windows in the back room. The windows that I told you, if I wanted to reach from the ground, I had to, like, there was physically no way anybody could be walking across at that height unless they were 11 feet tall. Like, there's no way. And I described what she looked like, and I just watched my mom's face go like pale. She goes, she was wearing the fucking jacket. She was wearing that jacket for me too. That's exactly what she looked like. We had the same dream at the same time about the same person, and woke up from that dream at the same time because we saw this person in places that they physically could not fit into in the real world. I have no explanation for it. My mom and I talk about it all the time, and we can still not figure out what went down for this to all of these puzzle pieces to like come together like this.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I've got a story here. So I've worked at several different facilities in my nursing career, and with that typically comes some kind of ghost talk or spirit talk. But at this one particular place, there's a lot of different stories. And when you work night shifts, y'all, you know, if you've ever worked in a nursing home on night shift, it's sketchy. Like, I could see why some people would have stories. But I had several different residents that would wake up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning talking about the girl in their room. And it was bothering them, and they wanted them out. And you would think, like, maybe it's a medicine reaction, or maybe they're still asleep. But when different residents are having the same stories about the same little girl, it makes you kind of wonder. Also, I've had different nurses with stories, such as charts flying off the shelf, not falling, like hurling, flying at you. I heard about who they thought was a man because of the way his boots sounded clicking on the floor, but walking down the hall to the nurse's desk whistling, and as he got closer to the desk, the whistling got louder, but nobody's there, and then they proceed to go down the hallway and the whistling gets quieter. But anyways, I had just started almost feeling something up there. And I was sitting at the nurse's desk. You know, you got the mirrors on the wall where you can see down the hallway. And so I'm just sitting there, staring in the mirror, kind of looking down the hall, because 2 of my CNAs were leaving. And when I tell y'all a mist, that's the only way I really know how to describe it. It was like a mist, but it was, you could see through it, almost like if it was a cloud smoke. Like you see the cloud smoke, but you can see through it. It's transparent. That's how this mist kind of was. But it just appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the hallway and zoomed really fast, as if it was running up behind my CNAs that were leaving, and then just vanished. And when I tell y'all, first of all, I'm all about science. I'm all about figuring something out. What's the reason? What's the logic? And I sat there, I guess with this spooked look on my face, trying to figure out what the hell I just seen. And another CNA had been watching me. And she immediately was like, "Are you okay?" And the way she said it, like she was spooked because of my reaction of just watching and being spooked. So I can't remember if it was that night or another night. But either way, once again, night shift, sitting there, quiet as can be. Y'all know it's quiet on that night shift, as long as you ain't got no crazies. But we're sitting there, and, you know, you have the double doors. And keep in mind, these double doors are on, like, a magnet system. Like, they're heavy. You know, you really got to pull them to close them. And unless, like, the magnets fail or there's a fire alarm, you know, those doors stay open. And when I tell y'all, I heard both of these doors slam shut. And my first thought was, my resident is up. So I had my CNA go down there and check. A little while later, I was like, "Hey, was Mr. So-and-so up whenever you went down there?" She was like, "Oh yeah, I meant to tell you. I went and opened the door back up, but everybody was in the bed." Okay, so maybe it was some kind of mechanical fail with the door, but weird. Because we also have another set of doors just like that. And if one of them's going to fail, typically the other will too. It was just the one set of doors. But anyways, so at this point, I'm on high alert. Like, I am looking like a crackhead, staring in this mirror, y'all. Just waiting, watching. Because I just knew something was going to happen. And I kid y'all not, it finally, like, whoof, shut real quick. I immediately jumped up. Me and my CNA ran down there so I could see for myself. There was nobody there. The doors were closed again. There was nobody there. All my residents were in bed asleep. There was nobody else working. Freaked me out. So, another nurse and I decided to, I guess, talk to the spirits. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know. But either way, I had gotten a toy because we did it twice, 2 nights. And I can't remember what the toy was the first night. And I wrote like, hi, my name is Amanda. What is your name? Why are you here? Where are you from? You know, just trying to, I don't know what I was trying to do. But I had left it on this particular spot on the floor and left that toy there. And nothing happened with that night. But I was telling another nurse, and she was actually the one who told me about the charts flying at her. But I said something to her, and me and her was working a shift together. So we got like this big blue bouncy ball and put, like on this little X we had put with tape on the floor, so we knew exactly where the spot was. And she had went into the dining room and had just kind of posted up with her phone and was recording whatever was going to happen. And I was down at my nurse's desk charting. And so she was down there for a good 30-45 minutes recording. Nothing happened. But at the end of her video, y'all, clear as day, you can see not one but 2 orbs fly across this ball we had put on the ground for the spirit. And her reaction, I knew it was real. Like, there was no way. Because watching the video now, and I've shortened the video to like less than a minute so that you're not watching the whole video and see nothing. But I'm going to let y'all decide for yourself. Because watching it, there's no way this could have been dust or a bug or something like that flying. Number one, because she's sitting in a pretty dark area, just kind of sitting in the corner by herself. And all the lights are off. You know, you just got a couple lights here and there, really dim. And the fact that you can see these orbs and her reaction as soon as she sees it with her eyes and takes off running, there was definitely spirits there. But I'm going to post that video for y'all, so you'll have to like and go follow for part 2. But tell me what you think. Do you see the orbs? And also, on a side question, so this nursing home, after this incident, had gotten demolished because we had a tornado actually go through our building. Sad story, whole different story. Let me know if you want to hear about that. I actually have video from that footage too. Quite tragic. But anyways, nobody was hurt. When I say tragic, nobody was hurt, but just mentally. Anyways, if the nursing home was demolished after the tornadoes, my question is, what happens to the ghosts or the spirits? Are they still stuck there? Is that their chance to move on? Are they pissed because we took their home? I don't know. Anyways, go watch part 2, see the video, and comment and let me know what you see. Do you see orbs?
What the fuck?